this is Sarah from sarayip.com, Facebook The Numbers Queen, and Instagram sarayip1111 with the very amazing Stephanie Sinclaire Lightsmith, who's currently in New Zealand. Is that right, Stephanie?
Yes. Thank you.
Very privileged to be talking to Stephanie today. I feel so excited. I've been reading Stephanie's book, Creative Alchemy, probably for 6 months. And, you know, normally I read a book in a day. That's really saying something. But I can only read a little bit at a time because it's so nutrient dense. It's kind of like eating one of those bliss balls. So I find I can't overwhelm. And so I'm super happy to be introducing you to Stephanie today. So welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you, Sarah. It's so great to see you. And I'm delighted to be on with you.
So how do you like to describe yourself, what you do, your work, that kind of thing?
Well, my job description is to inspire people to their highest potential and help them join the shift of the ages, which I describe as moving from Homo sapiens, thinking humans, to Homo illuminatus, illumined beings. I feel we're having that shift now, and it's accelerating all the time. And although people's awareness is growing at the rate of knots, we still have a lot of emotional healing to do. So it's a step-by-step process to bring us into, the emotional healing, release of trauma, and then connect with our highest potential and our inner superhero, inner God self. That makes it sound really simple, but it's a practice and something that we fold into our lives. And once people are actually connected to their own inner divine, their own inner superhero, they can really throw away the books to some extent. And I still take courses and read books, but it's more for joy and the delight in seeing somebody else's path, and definitely getting a few tips now and then. But I pretty much 100% connected, and it's just amazing. It's so amazing, and I love it when I can help other people do that. And I also come from the world of film and theater. I'm a painter, writer, director, producer for film and theater. And I'm working on series and novels and games and VR experiences as well. Everything from great adventures to intimate journeys, but they're all interwoven with the keys and codes we now need to step up and become true masters and co-creators of paradise, which is where I think we are now, and what we're wanting and what we're realizing we actually have the power to do.
Wow, that's a heck of an introduction. I like it. 5 stars. Makes a lot of sense. You know, when you were talking, I got a vision. You know, for a long time, people would go to these classes and teachers, and they would kind of expect that teacher or class to turn the lights on for them. But then the teacher's got a really tough job, because essentially the person believes they're in darkness, or they are darkness, or they're sinful. Or so there's a lot of work to do before you can even get going, you know, and it's slow and it's arduous. And I like this idea of, when you're talking about the Homo illuminatus, that the person comes in and the lights are already on. And they're just interested in how this other person does lighting design. And it's more just about like exploring and noticing and observing rather than sort of sucking.
Yeah, I think that's a really good analogy, And I think we're it's a vampiric energy, and that we've got to get something. We've got to get something from this person, and that thing is going to be the thing that turns the lights on, instead of an almost opposite thing where your light is already on and you're just looking for the keys and codes or what you need to shed. It's almost like, what do you need to let go of rather than what do you need to get? And sometimes that kind of causes me a little despair, is when I sort of see the uber commercialization of spirituality, where it's become such a commodity. And everybody's thinking, well, if I pay this and do this, I'm going to get it. When actually it's the same system as the ancients used. And like you say, it's long, but it's also sacred and very beautiful. And because it's slow, you learn it and you can teach others, whether that be your children, your friends, or professionally. If you have it like that, which of course sometimes it does for people, you don't know how you got there. So that's a very special journey. And that would be for somebody who wouldn't be destined to be a teacher. And I find most people who are teachers have had very slow journeys, because they can look back at any point of the way and they can have total compassion for anybody and everybody because they've likely been there and experienced that emotion or that ordeal or that trauma, and they've overcome it. So it builds enormous strength. And I think we are meant to be very, very strong, not ethereal, as I might have thought 30 or 40 years ago, that we'd all be floating around like angels at this point. It's almost the exact opposite, that we've just become strong, very earthed, because of course, how on earth are we going to create heaven on earth unless we are earthed? So it's been almost a journey, you know, in my generation, which was very much the big awakening, the radical awakening of the 70s. It was about, you know, ascending. And now I really feel it's more like descending the spirit into the body fully, the electronic presence, the I am presence, moving that completely in the body. So we become like God beings. We become able to do, create from our imagination and make real that which we endow with our thought and feeling. And I think we're in a really exciting time. And like we were talking about before we started recording, the children are just astounding. You know, the ones that are coming in after we've sort of taken the machete and, you know, cut back a lot of the bracken so they can run free. I think their journeys are going to be very different.
Yeah, super agree. I really love online calls, because just like in my readings and forecasts, whenever there's a lot of spiritual activity, you see it all recorded on the video. I think you'll see it in the playback, but often when you were talking just now, there was like little light beams or flickers, and I just love that evidence. I'm a really data scientist person, so that was really cool. So yeah, there was a few things about what you said, and obviously I love to really work at that point of where the spirit meets the parents. I love working with baby spirits and children who've just been born, and even, you know, I work with a lot of adults on even just repairing some of that connection. And I think it really does start from conception, pregnancy, birth, and just the way that we treat and talk to that baby spirit. Because, I mean, you can emphasize the baby or you can emphasize the spirit. And so right from the beginning, you're sort of either contracting them or you're allowing them to be expanded still and stay expansive. And I find a lot of it comes through the way we communicate. You know, they talk about like talking down or sort of dumbing things down. And I see that sometimes with people. It's like when I was going to become a mother, I was very terrified of ever having a baby. That's why I only had kids at 35, because I just assumed my children would be vegetables and that it would be just hard work. You know, the whole time I would have to have all that responsibility and do just so much extra to get them up to speed, like help them to catch up to me. And I look back and I just think that's so arrogant, because having done that spiritual journey before I had children, thank God, I was then able to just talk to them like little friends and colleagues. And, you know, right from before birth, Forrest was already upwardly managing me, letting me know his life purpose, what he was looking forward to, why he'd chosen me. And so I was able to keep all the channels open. So by the time he came in, you know, the only time Forrest ever stopped talking to me in a pregnancy was when we were in labor. When we were in labor, we both shut up because we had to concentrate. And as soon as he was out, he was Forrest FM again. And we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Have you thought about this? And if I had known that children came with that amazing ability to connect, I would not have waited so long to have kids.
Yeah. Oh, they are amazing.
Super pleasurable, because you literally just are like, open your mouth because something cool is going to come out.
I know, they're so incredible. I've had that experience too. In fact, I almost had a child, but my late husband didn't want to. And I'd spent a whole summer communicating with this child, and it was advising me I was low in iron. It told me to go to the Chalice Well in Glastonbury, which of course is very high in iron and all of this. And then I wasn't able to have the child because, you know, we just decided not to. And then I got a call from a woman I'd met at a global gathering, and she said she was pregnant. Oh, I know. Before that, I was hearing Kuan Yin speak to me, and I said, can you tell me something I really don't know? Because I feel like I'm talking to myself. I need some kind of evidence. And she said, oh, the woman that you met at the global gathering is having the child that would have come through you.
Yeah.
I said, okay, I did not know that. There's no way I could have made that up. So like a week later, the woman calls me out of the blue, and we hardly knew each other. Only one weird thing happened. She gave my daughter, who came to the gathering with me, I used to bring her to all these amazing gatherings, a beautiful little silver pendant of a child riding a dolphin. So keep that in mind. So I'm not going to tell this woman, oh, I've just gotten this message, your child is actually my former child. So she calls me a month later, and she says, both my parents have died. Would you be the child's guardian if anything happened to me? And I said, of course, still not saying anything. And then she calls me a month later and she said, I bought this book, How to Communicate with Your Unborn Child. And the child says you are also her mother and your daughter is also her sister. So I know. So she went to the Yucatan and she was swimming with dolphins, which this really informed this child, amazing, amazing girl, who's now, about 20. And my daughter and I went down to the Yucatan and brought her back to England, and she had her child in England. I wasn't meant to be at the birth. She made this huge circle of friends. She was very outgoing. None of them are able to come. She calls me at midnight and says, can you pick me up? We've got to go to the hospital. And I birthed the child. So it is incredible. And because, you can learn how to do it. So anyone listening who feels like, oh, it's easy for them to say, it's something you can actually train yourself to do. It's just active listening. And, it's just a matter of taking the time to be really, really quiet, have a pen and the paper and listen, whether it's to the child that's not yet in you, being invited in by you, or is actually in your tummy. And you can start this amazing dialogue like you and Forrest had, which is just gorgeous. Did you write some of that down so he can read that later?
Yeah, I've produced little comics for my children of what happened.
Oh, wonderful.
We love reading them. We love
that's so cool.
So that'll be some creative process at some point. And I think this is really an important metaphor for just the creative journey, because, the 90% of the miracles coming from opening to the idea that the idea has a spirit, or the idea has a consciousness. So, for example, I work with lots of people who would like to contact a baby. And it's true, sometimes the babies go elsewhere, or sometimes it's a very brief incarnation. I'm about to do a crystal healing webinar with a friend who's had very similar experience to you. But I also work with people to connect them with the spirit of their business, the spirit of their house, the spirit of their computer, their car, and people laugh. And then I'm like, well, you believe everything is energy. And they're like, yep. So I'm like, when you talk to it and you curse things and you swear at them, like there's a record of that.
I so agree with you.
And so, I often say to people, when was the last time you thanked your phone? And they just laugh at me, and I'm like, and yet who would you be without it? And so we create this dualism that somehow, and I call it almost like a type of spiritual prejudice or racism, that somehow we are more conscious. And in some ways we are, having a soul and stuff, but there's still a lot of life in everything around us. And even this painting behind me is full of beings.
Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, every electron.
The process is easier because you're starting to see the ideas in yourself more like partners rather than you have to control it. And that's very exhausting,
I think that's amazing. I mean, I got a refrigerator that was squealing. They came out and said, we can't mend it. We just have to throw it in the refrigerator graveyard. And I was like, oh, I didn't feel very good about that. So I had a really long talk with my refrigerator. And I said, if you don't stop squealing, you heard what's going to happen. And it absolutely stopped. So I totally give thanks to all my electronic equipment every day, because everything is electrons, and every electron is on its way to its own ascended mastery. It's on its own journey. And I actually go even one step further and say these electrons have sacrificed their freedom to be our computer, our refrigerator, our walls. So we need to bless them and be grateful for them all the time. And if you do that, people come into my house and they go, oh my God, this house, it feels so amazing. And it's just because I'm thanking it all the time. So it's a really happy house. And also when I'm cleaning, because everything has elementals as well. Yeah. Everything has elementals because everything's made from Mother Nature.
Totally.
So, I clean in a very gentle way so that the elementals are very soothed as well, and give them thanks as well. So I agree with you. I think that's a beautiful thing to be teaching. That's wonderful.
Well, I'm loving this because I'm at the point where we need a bit more of a cleaner. I'm going to have a third kid soon, And I wrote an article a long time ago about how you can get a cleaner in and they leave your house more dirty. And I've really seen a parallel with the way that some healers and therapists work. Because as soon as they come in, all they see is a problem to be fixed, and it's their job to fix it to their standard. And there's not that tuning in of what's really needed. Is a healing even needed? Is there actually a deeper issue here? It's just very superficial. Just get the job done, get out of there as quickly as possible, watching the clock.
Yeah,
and
that's so
I
true.
found with that, like the house feels worse because the house almost feels like it's just been like traumatized.
Yeah.
I've had healings like that. I still remember one, I think she was using those aura soma.
Yeah,
I love all that stuff, yeah, but I just remember the languaging at the end. So she was very into like, this is what's wrong with you and you still need lots of fixing. And then at the end, I didn't know, right? I just didn't know this was a thing, but I touched one of the bottles and she like screamed at me.
Oh no. Oh
Well,
no.
you know that sort of polite talking, but sort of screaming from the inside. And then I could just never see her again. There's been a few healers like that. Another one told me my spirit guides were lazy, so she'd swap them out with some other ones. And you just are like, my God, like there's a lot of garbage out there.
Yeah. Oh, and that's so rude as well and invasive.
It'll be a great blog or comedy one day, yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I think just making comic books out of it or put it in a comedy act is great.
Potentially. And look, at that stage of my journey, I was very much thinking I was a sinner and I was broken. I was attracting people who were putting themselves in that position of power. So I'm very aware of the co-creation. But it's just interesting because I reckon you just can't hide it. You know, at some point in the conversation, I think it leaks out if you think you're better than someone. And I think it comes out in parenting. It comes out in like business, it comes out in healing. So I've over time become incredibly discerning. And when I'm going to like see someone, I try to follow them for some time. And the biggest thing I tell my clients now is watch videos of your teachers, because you can like edit a book. You can get someone to write it for you. You know, a lot of things can be sanitized, but you watch someone in a video, unless they are, you know, the world's best actor, you will pick up whether they're in integrity or not, which is one of the reasons, like I said, I'm making myself do those weekly videos and then watching them back because I want to really clean up my own energy field. So there's something about film and video you can't get away with as much.
Yeah, you see everything, but your energy field seems beautiful to me. Absolutely radiant.
Thank you.
Lovely.
It's a long journey. I'm almost 40. I'm almost 40. And I'm one of those sort of work all the time people. So I'm like 40, but I've probably done a few lifetimes already.
Yeah, me too, definitely. I'm probably on my 5th or 6th.
So we've had some awesome intro. So just wanted to let people know how we met. So we met through Hong Curly, who I've blogged about before, haven't yet interviewed. She's lovely. And we met at a quantum healing retreat that Hong and Mike ran. And you were one of the speakers. You were speaking about creative alchemy. And it's interesting because just after that retreat, I remember I fell pregnant with Charlie. They should have little disclaimers.
Yeah, that's right.
I was doing this beautiful sort of tantric dancing and also that. And I swear, like, it was just instant manifestation at that point.
Those were great retreats, the 2 retreats you did, she and Mike did. They were beautiful.
Yeah, all the people who come together, I've just starting to move into group work myself very slowly. And yeah, you just see so much electricity, connection, and that whole idea of star seeds needing a constellation. And I'm now starting to see the beauty of like mass gatherings where there's a you know, there's some sort of common cause and there is a level of filtering, but it's just the best feeling, isn't it, to be in a whole group of people who wish the best for you and for themselves and for the world.
Yes, that's healing enough in itself.
It's kind of like creating that mini paradise you talked about. So we know from your date of birth, which you've given me privately, that it adds to 31, making you a 31/4 life path in the system I use in numerology. And it's interesting, Hong is a 31/4 as well. So am a lot of my mentors. So I call this the heart heal and empire builder. And often I find in the journey there's been some quite a lot of early heartbreak. and then there's this sort of slow, steady rebuilding and almost creating something even bigger and better. So that's why I call it the empire builder, because often by the time you've healed yourself, you've actually healed a whole bunch of other people just along the way, which is like that play that's called The Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum.
Oh yeah, I love
Funny
that.
Thing Happened on the Way to Self-Healing.
Yeah, I love that.
So can you relate to that?
Totally. Yeah, I had a very, very traumatic childhood. I had to work very hard on my self-worth. Um, I have a lot of theories about my childhood. I won't go into now because it would be like a long talk. It might be something to talk about another time, actually.
Maybe in a
But
family numerology talk. So I'm sort of moving now into doing group numerology, which is not something that's common, but it's so powerful.
it's interesting.
And so I've just I did a webinar, why did your child choose you? But I would also like to do like, why did you choose your parents? It's just that it's a little bit of a hotter topic.
Yeah, it is really interesting. You know, when you start to realize that you did choose your parents. I adore my parents; they're amazing people. But it was very, very, very traumatic, and it set me on a very long healing path that began at age 12. Somebody gave me the books of Edgar Cayce, and I read them all, and I was like, oh my gosh, and that began my healing journey. I'm very driven, which is probably very 31-4. I'm very committed to uplifting.
It's like the number one thing. It's like, get out of the way.
Yeah, very, very driven, very focused. I kind of amaze myself sometimes. Joan of Arc is my role model. And I feel like Joan of Arc in so many ways. I am deeply connected to her. I hear voices. I'm guided by voices. I also do foolish things because, you know, she didn't stop. The voices stopped. She kept going and ended up being burned at the stake. But, you know, she did amazing things, crowned the rightful king and all of that. And I just feel like I'm just really hitting my stride now. And one of the things I want to do and write about is being a woman. I'm 66 years old now. I feel absolutely 16. I'm full of energy. I have no intention of dying at 80 or 90. That's absurd as far as I'm concerned. I'm at least living to 120, if not 150. I've got lots to do, and I'm not interested in shedding this body and starting all again until I finish my mission. And I think the heart thing comes in because everything I do is really focused on uplifting humanity. So I don't do any projects that don't have that at its core, because it's just not worth it. And that doesn't mean you can't do great stories that have all the light and dark of humanity, but it means at the core there's something uplifting. And I really actually do not like seeing films or theater that are really down, because I'm so aware of how potent our focus is. And I will go see a children's movie if there's not, and I usually find them quite brilliant. The writing really
yeah, well, the children's movies they make now are quite, a lot of them are very well informed.
Yeah, they're very spiritual. This is where you can get away with a lot of spirituality. And I find that a lot of kids going to horror movies and horror slasher movies, it kind of breaks my heart, because the bodies do not know the difference between one body and another body because of the mirror neurons. So, you know, your poor body is getting all of that information imprinted. And I believe I'm the canary in the mine. Just because I'm super sensitive and an empath doesn't mean the other people aren't being really affected, even if they just are having a laugh and, you know, kissing their boyfriend and eating popcorn or whatever. But anyway, you know, people can do whatever they like. But as I grow more aware, I am so committed to having in my focus only that which enhances my life, because I really don't have the time to clean up the mess when I'm really focusing on something dark. Sometimes out of curiosity, what is happening? It's so Machiavellian. It's like watching a train wreck, and you can go down that rabbit hole. And I've been on the internet till 3 a.m. going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And then I've just had to say, Stephanie, get out of there. Focus on the paradise timeline. Focus on creating the new and the beautiful. Send them the violet fire and a bunch of angels to heal them, and, you know, dissolve their you know, their serious lack of alignment. But don't focus on it. And I think that's a choice that all of us need to look at now, because we are really in a time of great polarity. We're being shown this and this. And so we have a lot of people in fear because they're believing this. And they do not yet know that they are totally in charge of the reality they're creating and completely create their own reality. Plus, we can all get together and create this new, beautiful reality. So I think probably from a planetary level, creating entertainment, and I know you and Chris are also in the entertainment business too, is one of the greatest things we could do. Creating really wholesome, amazing, great stories, because everyone loves entertainment, and that's never going to change. It's just storytelling is as old as humanity. I think that can help people, give them the keys and codes to take away this spell of fear, which is gripping. And people in the light community as well have it.
Yeah.
You know, they're also sort of a little gripped by fear right now.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I've been writing on a lot of these themes this year and teaching on them. And my last forecast, I do weekly forecasts on Facebook. It was a lot about busting that cult thinking.
Yeah, that's
And,
really good.
I do talk a lot about the dark side. So as a child, I really struggled to be in a body. And so I became obsessed with very sort of gothic topics like serial killers and stuff. And, you know, every now and then I do get the urge to sit down and look at a few of those stories still. And it just sort of reminds me all the choices that I've made. And what I've noticed, so as soon as I had children, I really became super accountable. So, for example, my little son, Charlie, my second, he's got very, very sensitive, fine skin. It's like the most beautiful, it's so soft, you can't stop touching it. And that's silk skin and palmistry, which is that they pick up everything, and at the same time, they can be super powerful because they can just read situations. They're very quick to figure stuff out. And I would find, especially when I was breastfeeding him, which was until he was 3, which was recently, if I started reading all this, what do they call it? It's there's a word for it, but anyway, you know, where you just keep reading all the news stories and they hook you in.
Yeah.
Oh boy, I'd probably get about 10 stories in, and he would start screaming. Didn't matter what room it was.
Wow.
Didn't matter, and you know, he still does it, and it just annoys the crap out of me.
But that's amazing. It's amazing to have that confirmation.
Oh, I'm like, just let me get away with it. And so, you know, I was thinking maybe he doesn't know what I'm doing, but I think I send off that signal like I'm eating cookies behind the kitchen cupboard.
Yeah, exactly.
I put this
I
thing
know.
like nobody pay attention. I'll just be over here indulging my love of death and bloodshed. And
There's a book I've got to get you the title of. It's called, it's about the egregore. And my friend gave that to me, and I was like, I was so grateful that he gave this to me.
Yeah.
It's about egregores, and an egregore is a force field or an energy that can build over any group at all. Like you and I are just creating a mini egregore.
Yeah.
And the egregore has power, has huge power. So like it can, you know, be over churches or cults or very dark. That's why they use all the ritual in the darker stuff. And when we engage too much, I've left, after I read that book, I left almost every group I was involved in. Even the so-called good, you know, very high-powered, extraordinary teaching foundation I've been part of for a few years. I just was like, nope, I'm not going to be part of any egregore. And I think that's what happens when you start to read that stuff. You become under the influence of the egregore. Unless you're completely neutral, then I suppose you could read it just out of curiosity once in a while. And I do sort of just check in to see what's going on. But I think Charlie's response is as good as any to let us know, you know, it's not a good idea.
Oh, look, Forrest and Charlie have the same ability to detect. So, you know, Forrest will sometimes come and he'll just take the phone and throw it. I'll be, you know, reading some crap, and I think they just know. They know when my energy goes just below.
Yeah.
Because I go into very extreme self-sabotage. You might know I had quite a lot of things, eating disorders and things before the kids. It's very easy for me to go down. It's a very comfortable place for me. That's actually why I do the work I do, because it just keeps me alive, actually. So I always think that whole idea of a funny thing happened on the way to self-healing. As soon as I stop doing this work for a long period of time, I go straight down again. And there was a part of me that thought that was a weakness, that somehow I should just be cured at some point of my habits. But I've been doing a lot of study on people. I've been into all these Netflix series on surgeons and stuff, and a lot of them work till the day they drop, and they just love it, and it's their calling, and that's how I feel about what I do. I just love it. It's my calling. It's my oxygen, and I don't see a reason to sort of cure myself of my happiness. You know.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's amazing. It's amazing having
I'm
one.
planning to do it forever too. My last reading was actually all about how age is just a number. And
Yeah,
the book I was reading today about thinking big that my friend Francesca gave me, it was also about how, yeah, there's basically clock watchers and people who create their own timelines.
yeah,
And I
totally.
used to be a clock watcher. And that was because I was always late, and that I just kept getting fired, and I kept having to quit because I just couldn't gel with clock watching people. It's not my nature. You know, I do it till it's done. I always say it's like someone came with a broken leg, you don't send them out with the cast half done. You do it till it's done.
Yeah.
Might be my 11 life paths. But if it's okay, I just wanted to go back. So we know you're a 31/4. So it'd be very interesting if you could let us know what was happening in your life around those life path turning points of 31, possibly 4 if you remember, but it's okay if you don't.
Well, at 31, I had just married my second husband.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thrust from being a very quiet painter and a poet and sort of mystic into running a noted theater in London. So that was really pulling me way out of my comfort zone. And we ran the theater together for 21 years. And I made a documentary called A Maverick in London that's somewhere online about it. And after he died, very sadly, in 2005, I ran it for 9 years.
Yeah.
And before I permanently moved over here. And at 4, I would have been moving from town to town and city to city with my mother, my sister, and my stepfather, who was a musician and small band leader.
Yeah.
So I can't remember like any, she might have married him right around 4.
Yeah, I would say, because you see the themes are always consistent within a lifetime. And you talked about how at 31 there was a marriage. You know, I'd almost be certain there's something there with the 4.
Yeah.
And what I'd also say, they talk about how the heart is the home. You know, you've obviously had to move homes each time, or where you put your energy. So, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I really appreciate you sharing that. So I'm interested in the book, Creative Alchemy. So when did you write it? And was there sort of a vision that came to you and it just asked you to write it? You know, was it like the baby spirit you talked about?
Well, basically, I was super into my creative work, and I got a vision that I had to write the book, and it was very challenging because it's not. It's very different than anything I've ever done or I've worked on.
Yes, it's a very different kind of book, isn't it? It's you know what it's like? It's like the never-ending story. You open it, and whoosh, off you go.
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm thrilled you're getting a lot out of it. I put a lot into it. It took 18 months to write.
Yeah.
I did a lot of research because I really wanted to, you know, show the science behind miracles.
Yeah.
And I also wanted to do it in an accessible way, and I wanted to make it entertaining. But it is very intense, and it's the book I would have loved in my 20s, 30s, and 40s. It just did not exist.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to write another KISS book, which is what Hay House calls them and recommends if you want to be like super popular, write a KISS book.
What's a KISS book?
It means keep
it. A page right
now. KISS means keep it simple, stupid.
Oh.
So that's what Hay House says. They said, write your book as a KISS book, keep it simple, stupid. And I was like, no, I am not going to write another one of those books that like tells you in 100 pages, you just do this and you can do this. And if those worked, we would all be having it. I mean, the fact is, I wanted to write the complete practice and process and completely explain the science behind it, but also make it fun and make people understand how extraordinary and magnificent we are, just how amazing. So the first 5 chapters are pretty much, I don't know how I would describe it, but they're not just science-based because there are a lot of anecdotes and stories, but then I kind of wanted to avoid the really deep esoteric mystical stuff, but the masters kept sending me, oh my God, I couldn't get away with it. So I had to write about the I am presence. I had to go there because in the end, although that's more for people who want to move into full mastery and really be walking the earth as the God beings we are meant to be, I felt that everybody needs to know a little bit about it. And it's come out, you know, Wayne Dyer started to write about it right before he died and said, oh my God, I found it, the I am presence. And people are now sort of the hip thing, but I've been studying it for 25 years. And I've studied it with hidden masters, and I've studied it with the Ascended Master Teaching Foundation and Dr. Norma Milanovic and people like that for literally almost 3 decades. And it's, people have it wrong. You know, I feel like saying, oh my goodness, it's not, we are that, we are that. You know, it's not that. It's, you know, I am that I am is the, you know, the infinite moving between eternity and infinity that we are. That is what we are. And it's about how we can move into the field of quantum potential and bring back from it anything and manifest it, as long as it is in alignment with our own highest good and the highest good of all. And I do say that over and over through the book, because one reason why the I am presence technology was very hidden is because it's very easy to abuse the power.
100%.
Yeah. So I say over and over and over again through the book that I'm sharing these very powerful techniques. There are even more powerful techniques I haven't put in the book, but I'm giving you everything because I believe I can't hold on to this wisdom without sharing. Otherwise, I'm not in integrity and I'm breaking the law of the circle. And it's time now. People are ready. People are really seriously ready to move into their superpowers. And I wanted to give my contribution of how we can do that. So I can't drum it into people enough that in order to be in alignment, in order to go beyond the glass ceiling, you need to know that you have to be in alignment with the highest good of all. And that is never opposed with your own highest good. That's the amazing realization. You know, I used to think, oh, my own highest good is just going to be really boring. But no, your own highest good is joyful and wonderful when you finally start to get there, like you say, you know. It's sheer happiness. It's not like your own highest good will be what is absolutely perfectly suited to you and every cell in your body.
When I did a regression, I've studied regression for a while for different reasons, and we did one where we meet our highest self, and mine was like this massive giant teddy bear.
Oh, I love
like
that.
A bear. And then I can tell you, like, once I connected with that, I just didn't have a fear of doing my soul work, because I guess I figured out that I wasn't a deeply evil person. I was just this massive teddy bear who was creating like a lot of love and kindness, and my purpose is to teach kindness and be kindness. It's very simple actually in its own way. But yeah, when I really connected with my higher self as this big cuddly toy, I liked myself.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
And my kids are really into cuddly toys, and my husband's like a big teddy bear. So yeah, we are kind of like this singing, dancing Care Bear family who have food
I
fights.
love that. And that's my daughter's family too. I adore going over there. It's just like, you know, they're silly and fun and do crazy dancing, and she sings a lot, and it's just wonderful. It's so great. I wish that every family could be like that. And
well, it's a repellent against all the nastiness, because the daily work I do can get very intense and super personal, and there's a lot of death and transition. And so yeah, we have a lot of silly times, and I found that's the best immune system to create. But yeah, so for example, today the boys and I woke up, and then we did a zombie walk over to the couch, because their dad was asleep on the couch this morning. So there was just me and this like 3 and 4-year-old kids like doing this zombie noises, and then Chris pretended he was asleep.
What's a zombie noise? All right, okay.
Vampire. There's Chinese vampire movies where they just jump around, and the kids were having such a great time. And then we all just jumped on him and gave him a group hug. And
I love that.
I could actually see all the happiness coming up Chris, because I mean, I know when I was a kid that certainly never happened.
No, that never happened in my family either. I mean, my God.
Each other a hug at the same time. It was so much fun. The boys insisted we do it over and over again with different sound effects.
Oh, I love that.
And then Chris was like, okay, too much hugs.
I just want to go back to kindness for a second, because, you know, there's a wonderful phrase, kindness is the greatest wisdom. And you know, we're all working hard to become the greatest we can be, but you meet these people who are just pure kindness, like an older lady at a shop, or an old man doing a gardener. You know, sometimes they're often older people who've been raised with really good values, and you just think kindness is the greatest wisdom. It's almost like we could just do nothing but kindness. We could just throw out all the books and just do kindness and gratitude. That would actually be enough. It's almost, I love the way you're keeping it simple, because you know, you can want to know all this amazing stuff, or you can also just say, I'm going to dedicate myself to kindness and gratitude. And
Yeah, well, it's more natural.
Yeah.
More natural to just go with each moment and make the kind choice. And it's better than trying to subscribe to a theory or religion where it's very concrete and structural and cult-like I said.
Yeah, or if you don't need to have a lot of information in your head. If you want to, if you're that sort of person, great. But, you know, I just watched a fabulous little mini documentary about longevity, and there was all these 97-year-olds in kind of Corsica and Italy, etc. And they were fit as a fiddle. They really natural food. They had loads of community. They laughed. They walked a lot. They ate very pure food, of course. And, you know, they were just having the time of their lives. And it was interesting because they weren't aspirational like we are.
Yeah.
You know, it's sort of like they were just so happy with their communities and their families and their plants and their animals. But I think we can bring some of that into our lives, and as much as we can.
Yeah, well, what you're saying is they're devotional.
Yeah, I love that.
They're devoted to, and that's certainly what I've learned, because my background was a child prodigy. I had a photographic memory, and just reading this book today about how people who are basically walking factories of information, they're often incredibly unsuccessful in the real world. And that is what I discovered when I finished all my studies, is that I was ill-equipped to deal with reality.
Yeah.
I've been unpicking that ever since, and what I've kept is just, I guess, the pureness of me. And, you know, there's a quote I really love, which is basically, happiness is a short memory. And I lost my memory when I had a eating disorder a few years, not that long ago. And I felt like quite relieved.
Yeah, I agree.
Quite relieved, because
what a blessing.
I had this sort of fresh start. It's almost like being a walking soul. And
that's amazing.
I've actually been the happiest I've ever been, because a lot of it literally kind of got wiped or stored away or archived, maybe by my higher self. Maybe it was just too much for one person, you know.
Well, maybe that's what maybe that's a miracle.
But that was my little miracle. So
yeah, that's beautiful.
Thank you. My last question: what are your tips for people wanting to write? Because I know I'm writing, and I'm sure a lot of people who watch this are interested in writing and books and educating and illuminating. So what are your tips for writing?
Well, first of all, if you can think and feel, you can write. And you know, I think it's great to write in your own language. Like, don't try to be somebody else. Don't try to marshal yourself into a straitjacket. Just write how you talk. And I think Creative Alchemy is written that way. I write as I talk. And always write a vomit draft first. That's my big tip. It's called a vomit draft because you are not allowed to look at it until you get to the end, and you're not allowed to criticize it, and you're not allowed to edit it. And this means you've got a body, you've got a manuscript, and that gives you the courage to keep on going. It also sometimes means that you will write fabulous things because your little self-critic goes offline, and you can write these marvelous phrases that you wouldn't think of if you were just concentrating really hard. And in art, in the world of art, we call those happy accidents, where you spill the paint on the painting and you go, wow, that looks really good. So it's just sort of, that's another really good thing you get in the vomit draft.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is just keep going. I took 16 to 18 months to write the book, and I took a year to edit it.
Yeah.
I had serious readers. I had a PhD in psychology. I had a human rights lawyer in yogini. I had a professional editor, gave it one draft. That's all I could afford of her, but she helped me raise my game and gave me some great tips. And then in the end, I finally got the structure in the 11th hour, the way I've done it, which I think really, really, really works, where it's just sort of the power of the body, the power of the mind, and so on. And that just came from sheer not giving up and keeping going with it. Because at first it was actually almost twice as long.
Yeah.
I had stuff about birds and animals, and like, So much stuff. And it was sort of like, focus on what your topic is, stay on topic, put that somewhere else in a blog or another book.
Yeah.
And just try to make, give yourself a really good structure, but don't worry about it. It's also, I've totally gotten rid of, not entirely, but I'm working on getting rid of being overly goal oriented.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm folding it into my life as a joyful thing that I do. And like, I've taken lots of time off in the past few weeks, which is something I haven't done in really about 4 years.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I'm just like, it can wait. I'm going to go take a walk on the beach. And just sort of make it like your spiritual practice almost, that you go and you do whatever is your right time. And I also believe that all of us who write have a right time, like, John Cheever, who wrote all those amazing books, including Sophie's Choice, was made in that incredible movie. He wrote 1 hour a day.
Yeah.
And then he had his day, and then he thought about that 1 hour of writing for 1 hour at night. So everybody, and look at those amazing books he wrote. So it's, I think, finding your rhythm, and don't try to be like anybody else. Like, maybe Stephen King writes 8 hours a day. Well, let Stephen King do that. You might be a half an hour person or a 2 hour person, and just be kind to yourself.
Yeah, it's really valid. When I was setting up my business and I wrote all those blogs, I've got about 500 blogs on my site.
Wow, that's enormous.
I was obsessive. I was obviously still had my eating disorder and stuff, and I would, write 10 or 12 or 15 hours, and I just wouldn't stop. And you can sort of tell in the blogs because some of them are a bit verbally. But I'm a lot tighter of a writer now because I have to write very small increments between the kids and marriage and work and all that. And yeah, I found writing my book, I can pretty much do 1 or 2 hours a week, but I think about it all week, and I think that's a beautiful way to do it, because I've heard many times that the way you feel when you write the book is how the readers will feel when they read it. And I realized that if I just because I've written quite a few books and never published them, but I always wrote them in one go, and they're very tense. It's a very tense experience. And I'm just stretching this one out, and I'm really writing more for pleasure than anything else.
I love that. When I was writing my book, I was often in a gamma state, a very heightened state of active listening and bringing in information. And my friend Josh, who's a wonderful fellow, he was reading the book. He's a millennial, so it's like a lot of my millennial friends, like Alex, is saying, just I want to do the audible. I don't want to read anything.
Yeah.
So reading my book.
Sound and acoustic, yeah.
Yeah, and he said he was finding it dense, and nutrient dense is a beautiful way to put it. He put on gamma wave binaural beats, and he said he could just read it so easily.
Well, maybe that's what'll get me to the end of your book, Stephanie.
Yeah. So it's like because the gamma waves will put you in the state that I was writing it in. And
that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, because I normally read it just for a few minutes a day, and then I'm like, whoop, okay, time to sleep.
Oh, well, I'm so thrilled, and we've had a similar journey as well, where I was meant to become this great genius, and there was so much pressure on me, and I've had eating disorders and all sorts, and this insane perfectionism, so hard on myself, and just coming out of that and realizing we're all geniuses. We all have a way to present some amazing gift inside of us, and that it happens with kindness and gentleness and self-care. And now I'm just so into self-care. It's like, I do not feel guilty whatsoever. I try to get myself like acupuncture or massage every other week if possible. My dream, if the ship ever comes in, I'm going to have a massage every morning. That's my dream.
Nice. I do a lot of like self shiatsu and stuff, because I was also like, I need that touch, because there wasn't a lot of touch when I was growing up. Actually, there was almost no touch. So I find every single day that yoga or self shiatsu really helps me between getting treatments.
That's really good.
Yeah, well, my parents were pretty keen for me to be a doctor. Probably heard that about every single dinner time. And it's an interesting situation where I went for the interviews and I talked about juggling because I was really into juggling. Just the look on their faces. And it's only years later I actually met the clown Dr. Patch Adams, and I met I have lots of friends who are doctors. I have clients who are doctors. That it's not actually a terribly bad thing. It's actually, they really need an outlet from that really super hard job. So I was on the right track, but I just, at the time, I just remember I got this sense of she's not serious. She's not serious enough to be a doctor. So it just didn't happen. But I feel in a way that my little blogs are like these kind of little scrolls of healing in their own special way. And
I feel you are a doctor.
Really.
You are a doctor. You're a doctor of healing and metaphysics, and I think that you provide a missing part in soul medicine and emotional medicine that we need. And I've been talking to my medical doctor about this, so I've been educating her, and she actually works with a naturopath sometime, which is so brilliant.
Yeah,
and she
great.
says, I can't know all this stuff. And I said, you shouldn't have to know all this stuff. There just should be more bridges. Like a doctor could work with you on with the patient, and then with the naturopath if it was something to do with the physical body. And so to me, you are a doctor. You absolutely are a doctor.
You're very sweet. Well, I do believe in referring, and I do have my doctor works with a naturopath, so maybe that's made me respect him more, actually. But I guess what I've discovered is it's more about the way of thinking.
Yeah.
It's that way of thinking of just being fairly objective and just doing as much as you can within the session, and then encouraging that self-care and nurture, like you said, so that they don't have to always come back. Not encouraging that dependence that they have to constantly come back for their fix. So there's something around the philosophy I do feel I still brought through. But I guess I feel like the way I do the healing, especially with the numerology and palmistry, is just showing people that it's right at their fingertips. So with the numbers, the fact that the date of birth of your parents and your children and your partners, just that unlocks their Akashic soul contracts within a few seconds. And I feel like that's really cool. And then being able to look at your hands and see each of the chakras, the heart chakra, solar plexus, root, sacral, throat, and just the look in people's faces, that just makes me super happy. So it's I don't know, it's an esoteric branch of healing. And what's interesting, of course, is that a lot of people used to know all this.
Yeah.
And, for some reason, it got killed off or died out. And I know that part of my purpose was to come and make it sexy again. And I scouted when I moved to Queensland that actually it was illegal to do paid palm readings and that kind of thing until 2000, 20 years ago.
Really?
And the psychics actually had to protest it to get it overturned under the Vagrancy Act. And so that explained why when I started palmistry meetups and I would teach it, people were just like, I can't explain it. It was like someone had risen from the dead.
Yeah.
They were like, I've always wanted to learn this, but I could never find anyone. I'm like, well, that's because it was illegal. Like, who's going to advertise it? Who's going to do that?
So archaic.
On the line like that if they've got a family or a job or something. And even I was very reluctant to advertise for years. Even it's only been the last few years I've outed myself really properly in the media, because there's for so long it was censored and it wasn't okay to talk about. So I'm hoping that, with these interviews and with the Patreon and all the work I do, that it'll become integrated into the mainstream again, that everyone knows their life path. They can talk about it with their kids. They know how to read their own bodies and hands and faces, and that it just returns to that state, because I just think that would be beautiful for everyone to have the lights on again,
I agree. I think you're doing amazing work, Sarah.
Well, thank you. It's been such a pleasure to
wonderful.
And I'm sure people will get a lot from this chat, and are just super grateful for your time.
Oh, same here. Just wish I could give you a big hug, but hopefully maybe in May I will.
I just started hugging myself. You must have transmitted the thought.
I love it. It's good. It's good. Yeah, we become our own parents again. Yeah.
So,
thank you, Sarah.
You're super welcome. How can people find you and your work?
Well, that's on Amazon.com now, and its Kindle is just $5.
Yeah.
I've had it's been quite tricky. Amazon's quite tricky. Like, I have no control over the prices outside of America. So it's actually much more affordable on the book is $22 US on the American site, and I think it's on for some much higher amount on the Australian site for some strange reason. But I'm kind of talking with Hong about possibly creating an ebook of it that's outside of Amazon, because a lot of people are getting quite disgruntled with Amazon. They've just gotten so big, and they can't really be that helpful anymore.
So how can people contact or follow your work?
I have a website. It's called creativealchemy.vision. There's also a Facebook site called Creative Alchemy, The Science of Miracles.
Oh, beautiful. And have you got any particular things coming up in the next year or so?
Well, I am working with Hong to get a course done. So I do want to get a course done so people can just be able to, because when you get to the workbook, I would love to be there with people. So find some kind of way that I can be with them, talk them through it as they're doing it, and just make it more accessible. So I'm working on a kind of like a 4 or 5 part course, and then if I'll make it so if they've taken the first 4 parts, I will go into the more very advanced stuff.
Good. Well, I got a lot out of The Artist's Way. Julia Cameron's a 2911 like me, and at 29 she had her breakdown and gave up alcohol and wrote the book and all that stuff. So The Artist's Way really helped me, and it's definitely the most similar thing I could think of with this book, because I wanted to show you as we finish up. So once I started reading your book, I started doing a lot of finger painting and dot painting again. So I wanted to show you some of my work.
Oh yeah, thank you.
One of them.
Oh, that's absolutely beautiful.
And let me see. So I've been just doing little like dot paintings, this kind of stuff.
Oh, I love that. That looks like the cover of a book.
Oh, maybe.
So that would be. Oh, those are beautiful. That's like a mandala.
For my kids, I've started making little animals. This is a bee.
Oh wow, those are gorgeous. They're very Aboriginal.
Yeah, one of my friends, Yarika, she's really into art, and it's just very organic for me and natural.
Keep going.
I wanted to show you one more thing. So one of the reasons I've been so blocked as an artist, I'm sure, is because I've always compared myself to my sister, who's professional level. And I wanted to show you this painting she did, because it's actually my favorite artwork. And I think I just love to get your feeling on the energy in that.
Oh my God, I love that. I absolutely adore that.
So my sister's very special. I don't think I could have done this lifetime without her. And
nice.
she's a beautiful person. So yeah, she's been making art like this since she was tiny.
That
so imagine me and my dot paintings go.
No, but your dot paintings are very different. It's a very, very different energy, and they're both beautiful, but they're both necessary. They're both gorgeous.
You. And it's so funny because just preparing for this call, I suddenly realized that her painting is all dots. It's all dots.
Oh yeah.
So maybe there is something we have in common after all. That made me feel a little bit more like happy.
I love what you're doing. I think it's great. And thank you so much, Sarah. I so appreciate this. It was so much fun.
So yeah, absolutely. We'll do a follow-up chat another time. It's been such a big year in 2020 for all the fours, and I know that we live in 9-year cycles. And I think I read on your site that you won a Queen's Award 18 years ago.
Yeah, I did. I won Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth's Award for Contribution to the Arts in Pursuit of Excellence in 2002, presented by Her Maj and Lord Attenborough at the Royal Academy in London.
Her Maj, so that's cool. I've never heard anyone say Her Maj.
Yeah. Well, she was amazing. She was sort of like your favorite grandmother. But she must be very bright, because she remembered all this stuff about us. She was able to talk about the King's Head as if she knew it. And my feeling is she probably forgot, just let it go from her brain in it, because she had to do it again for all the other people. But it was a one-off Golden Jubilee Award, and it was really, really great. And by the way, Creative Alchemy, The Science of Miracles won the Ashton Wiley Book Award in New Zealand.
Oh yes, I'm very happy about that. My kids are about to bust in the door. So that came to my attention, guys, just a minute, because I'm about to update my Royals forecast. Before I go, I want to introduce you to my kids.
I'd love to meet them.
My boys, come in for 1 minute. Come in. Okay, we're just finishing an interview, so you can be momentarily famous. Can you say hi, Auntie?
Hello. Hi. I'm going to hopefully see you in May. I can't wait. I can't wait to see you.
So we're going to wind up a recording now, Charlie. So thanks everyone who's been listening. This is Sarah from sarayip.com.
Oh,
Facebook, The Numbers Queen, and Instagram, sarayip1111 with the amazing Stephanie Sinclaire Lightsmith. So thank you.
mwah.
Please subscribe.
So beautiful. I remember when he was in your tummy.
Yes.
So gorgeous. Oh.
And we'll sign off. Charlie, can you do double peace signs?
Double peace
That's
sign.
the equivalent of it facially. Okay, so I'm just gonna wind up now. Okay. So
Okay, lots of love and thanks. And bless you. Bye bye. Bye bye.